Uncle Drama here. In a rural town in South Korea, a siren sounds, warning the residents about the shooting drills to be conducted by the armed forces. However, instead of soldiers, a group of mercenaries arrives, heading towards the most isolated house in the town. Judging by its state, the property seems to have been attacked recently. While the team of mercenaries prepares, the sniper Song-jo is positioned on top of a bridge, with the house in his sights. He fires, and the bullet grazes the cheek of Jian, an apparently ordinary young woman. She is the niece of Jin Man, the mercenary's target. Jian considers retrieving a gun lying on the floor, but Song-jo knocks the pistol away with another shot. Desperate, Jian focuses on the lessons her uncle, Jin Man, taught her about the importance of blind spots in a shootout. Jian then raises a piece of glass tied to a broom, tricking Song-jo into shooting at it. This way, she manages to estimate the sniper's location and his line of sight. Attempting to cross the room, the girl climbs onto the refrigerator and leaps to the other side. A bullet almost grazes her head, but her calculations about the sniper's field of vision were accurate, and she lands safely on the couch. Underneath the furniture, Jian finds a sniper rifle that belonged to her uncle. She takes aim and fires. Months before this conflict, we see Jian at a police station after assaulting a harasser. A police officer asks about her legal guardian, and she calls her uncle. However, a detective answers and informs her of Jin Man's death. The news is a shock, as her uncle was her only living relative. Curiously, the last thing Jin Man did was give his niece a bulletproof wardrobe and install bulletproof windows, because you never know what might happen. Jian goes to the morgue and confirms the identity of her uncle, who supposedly committed suicide by cutting his throat. The police investigated the possibility of murder, but after checking security cameras, found no one near the house throughout the entire week. As Jin Man's body is returned to the morgue compartment, Jian notices a tattoo on him with the inscription Mirth Help. Jian moves into her late uncle's house, where she receives a visit from Jong Min, a childhood friend and IT specialist who had worked with Jin Man for a while. During her uncle's funeral, Jian notices that a man named Yong Han sent flowers, but none of Jin Man's friends recognize the name. At that moment, a pair of twins appear at the funeral, silently observing the event without speaking to anyone. Jian doesn't know who they are either, and realizes she is just beginning to uncover the people connected to her uncle. After her parents' death when she was a child, Jin Man took responsibility for raising Jian until she entered university. But despite nearly a decade together, Jin Man managed to keep his secrets well hidden. Meanwhile, Jong Min cleans the bathroom where Jin Man's body was found, and a bloodstain leads him to discover a hidden phone. Back at home, Jian breaks down in tears. She hadn't cried during the funeral, but now wonders why her uncle hid so much pain. Jong Min arrives to show her the phone he found in the bathroom. After calming down, Jian examines the device and finds a message from an unknown sender, claiming to have deposited a large sum of money into Jin Man's bank account in exchange for a mysterious service. As far as Jian knew, her uncle was just a simple salesman. Jong Min had even developed a website for Jin Man's shop. At that moment, using his IT skills, Jong Min discovers that the online host shop was just a front for an illegal weapons store called Mirth Help, the same word from Jin Man's tattoo. An enigmatic client sends a message through the site about an order, and the friends reply, stating that the store has been closed. With just that information, the user deduces that Jin Man is dead and warns that Jian will be the next victim. At that exact moment, a woman knocks on the door and introduces herself as Jin Man's Chinese tutor. In addition to her, Jian also receives threatening messages while flying drones head toward her house. In a flashback, we see Jian's family. After years of absence, Jin Man finally reunites with his brother Jin Cheon and his sister-in-law Young Soon. Shortly after the reunion, Young Soon dies of cancer. Faced with the loss of her grandmother, young Jian declares that dying is terrible. Though her uncle agrees, he takes the opportunity to teach her a lesson using a wildlife documentary. In the documentary, a group of hyenas surrounds a lion, and even in the face of imminent death, the lion remains silent. The hyenas, however, continue to make noise. While Jin Man was looking after his niece in his apartment, a stranger appeared at Young Soon's funeral asking for him. Shortly after, the same man called Jin Man's phone. Alarmed, Jin Man tells young Jian that he has to return to the funeral and warns her that someone will knock on the door soon. He instructs her to give the visitor a riddle. If the person solves it, they are no threat. If not, she must not open the door. As expected, an assassin knocks but ignores Jian's riddle. He tries to unlock the door, but another man surprises him from behind. Inside, a frightened Jian listens to the fight until her savior appears, introducing himself as Honda, a friend of Jin Man. Honda defends Jian from the other assassins attacking the house, but he ends up dying through the gap in her bedroom door. Jian watches in horror as the mysterious man from the funeral, Song-jo, kills Honda. She sees him cut off Honda's hand and, terrified, attempts to escape through the window. Song-jo finds Jian hanging outside the building and tries to capture her, but she lets go, falling onto a pile of garbage. The chase continues through the streets, ending when Jian is hit by a car. When she wakes up in the hospital, Jian overhears two police officers discussing her parents' deaths at Young-soon's funeral. That night, Jian dreams of a hyena entering her room, carrying Honda's severed hand in its mouth. Upon waking, she feels the presence of an assassin pursuing her and flees the hospital. With the killer on her trail, she has no choice but to hide in a morgue drawer, the same one where her mother's body rests. Before the assassin can open the drawer, Jean-man arrives and kills him in a hail of bullets. He then takes Jian in his arms, covering her eyes so she won't see the bullet-ridden body. From that point, Jean-man became her guardian. At school, Jian began to suffer bullying because of her aphasia, a condition that left her unable to speak, caused by the trauma of losing her parents. The only boy who defends and understands her condition is Jongmin. One day, Jian becomes furious when she hears a boy say that her father killed her mother and then committed suicide, as the police officially claimed. Enraged, she hits the boy with a chair. As her guardian, Jean-man is called to speak with the school administration, but he prefers that Jian handle the situation herself so she can be prepared for the real world. The bullying continues, and one day, the boys lock her in a storage room. Once again, she sees the hyena with the severed hand in its mouth. Overcome with fear, Jian calls out for her uncle until he comes to rescue her. Unknowingly, she overcomes her aphasia, which also improves her relationship with her uncle. Back in the present, Jian manages to convince the supposed Chinese teacher to leave. Afterward, Jongmin shows her a series of mirth help codes that categorize different types of products. According to the classification, people marked with a green code are to be protected by the store's clients. The only people with the green code are Jean-man and Jian. Shortly after this discovery, they realize that while some clients are tasked with defending her, others are trying to take over the store, exploiting Jean-man's death. This becomes clear when several armed drones arrive. Jian and Jongmin try to escape the house, but they are completely surrounded by drones, which shatter the bulletproof windows. Jongmin hides in a reinforced cabinet, but a drone blows the door off with a bomb. Just before it can shoot him, Jian destroys the drone with a slingshot she found in her old bedroom. This takes us back to Jian's adolescence, when her uncle had the house renovated to make it safer. Instead of moving elsewhere during the construction, he decided to go on an adventure in the forest with his niece. On the way to the campsite, Jean-man injures his leg, leaving Jian responsible for their survival. After they settle into a cave, he shows her a map marking the location of the nearest emergency phone, 5 kilometers away. Before she begins the journey, Jean-man insists on giving her a slingshot. He also tells her that if she runs into trouble, she should call his name 3 times, and maybe he'll magically appear to help her, just as he had rescued her at school when she was younger. As Jian starts her trek, Jean-man stands up as if nothing had happened and calls a colleague named Pazin, thanking him for the drugs that temporarily weakened his body. After a long walk, Jian finally reaches the emergency shelter, only to find a pack of wild dogs there. She freezes in fear, especially when she sees the hyena from her nightmares among the dogs. Surrounded, she tries to use her slingshot, but the animals attack. She manages to use a stone to fend off the dogs, but the hyena remains, slowly advancing. This reminds her of her uncle's lesson: the weak bark, while the strong stay silent. With this in mind, Jian fires another shot with the slingshot, and the hyena retreats. The dogs continue to circle her until mysterious gunshots scare them away. When she turns around, she sees her savior is Jean-man. Young Jian becomes suspicious of her uncle's unexpected presence. He responds that nature healed him and that the rifle had always been hidden in the cave. Jian grows even more indignant with his answer, as it means he sent her into the forest with only a slingshot. Later, Jian practices her aim with the slingshot, but when she thinks she hit the target, she discovers it was her uncle who shot the bottle using a firearm. He doesn't explain how he obtained the gun, but instead explains the pistol's mechanics, piece by piece. After mastering the assembly of the weapons, Jian is finally allowed to start shooting for real. In the present, Jian destroys the drone that was about to hurt her friend, and the two use the reinforced cabinet door as a shield to protect themselves from further gunfire. The shield is effective against bullets, but Jian and Zhongmin are still impacted by the bombs hitting the door. Not far away, the supposed Chinese tutor watches what's happening and uses an electromagnetic pulse rifle to disable the drone that was about to shoot the youths. She then invades the house and, after confirming that Zhongmin is not a green code, sedates the boy. Jian tries to shoot her with a slingshot, but the intruder quickly overpowers her and checks that the girl is, in fact, a green code, confirming her relationship with Jin Man. With that done, the woman introduces herself as Minhai, a colleague of Jin Man, tasked with protecting her. Before they can continue their conversation, they are interrupted by elite sniper Song Zhou's gunfire, separating Minhai and Jian to opposite sides of the house. Minhai uses a smoke bomb to hide, which leads Song Zhou to deduce that Jian is receiving help. The mercenaries send a drone to disperse the smoke. Minhai manages to shoot it down but exposes herself and is hit in the arm by the sniper. This brings us back to the beginning of the story, where Jian is cornered in the kitchen with Minhai's pistol just a few meters away. After grabbing the rifle hidden under the couch, Jian fires after Minhai teaches her how to use the weapon. Her first shot destroys the van's window where Song Zhou is positioned. The mercenaries start to surround the house, and Minhai orders the young ones to hide in the host storage while she provides cover. As the two friends change positions, Song Zhou tries to shoot them, unaware that Minhai has him in her sights. She pulls the trigger and shoots the driver of the van, a friend of Song Zhou. In the storage area, Jian and Zhongmin find a panel that Jian unlocks with a number her uncle used to repeat to her. They access the underground store of Mirth Help, where they find all kinds of criminal goods. They should be safe there, but they are surprised by a hooded man who calls himself brother. Then, we are taken to another flashback. This time, we go back to the day Jian's parents died, when Jin Man received a call from Jun Chio, a man warning him that Bale, Song Zhou's supervisor, is still alive. On his way to the funeral, Jin Man is ambushed by a truck full of mercenaries who start shooting at his car. Back in the present, Minhai turns off the lights in the storage room and takes out the invaders one by one. The mercenaries then shoot at the ceiling, creating holes to let sunlight in. Minhai continues to fight, taking down all the men until Captain Kim appears. She recognizes him from the past and recalls that he was supposed to have retired long ago. After an intense fight, where the veteran proves to still be a formidable enemy, Minhai manages to kill him. In the armory, Brother throws handcuffs for the young ones to restrain themselves. Jian pretends to handcuff her friend and attacks Brother, knocking him out with a powerful arm lock. Once again, we are taken back to Jian's past, to the moment when she is with her first crush, a boy named Junyun. Even though Jian really liked him, her uncle didn't approve of the relationship, believing Junyun was trouble. The boy rode a motorcycle without a license and even smoked, making him unsuitable for his niece. Tired of being overprotected, Jian confesses to her uncle that she has several jobs because she plans to save enough money to leave home and become independent from Jin Man. Jin Man simply responds that he will only allow her to move out if she manages to hit him in the face. In the following days, the girl tries in every possible way to hit her uncle, but Jin Man always dodges easily. On one occasion, he is helped by his partner, Pazin, who knocks the girl out. After being knocked out by Pazin, Jian asks him to teach her Muay Thai techniques, and the man agrees. The first days of training are tough, and she constantly gets beaten. But with time and dedication, Jian keeps up with Pazin's pace and gets closer to her goal of hitting her uncle. One night, Jian encounters a gang of attackers on the street. The group intends to assault her after their first victim escapes. What they didn't expect is that the girl would dodge their strikes and take down the attackers. Jin Man appears to defend his niece from one of the attackers, who is armed with a knife. He says that fighting someone armed is still a risk she cannot take. In the present, Jian finds several screens in the armory showing live footage from various security cameras, from the school to the city streets. This is how she discovers that brother was watching every place she frequented. Furious, she threatens him with a gun, but the man responds that there's no time for explanations, as more mercenaries will arrive soon. Jongmin turns on the lights, causing brother to have a panic attack, as he has a condition that makes him intolerant to light. Terrified, brother runs down the armory corridors, and as Jian tries to capture him, she falls into a secret chamber. Brother shuts off the lights and, using night vision goggles, manages to neutralize Jongmin. Then, he talks to Jian through the cameras and explains the rules of Mirth-Help. According to the rules, if the original owner dies, their closest relative inherits the store and must continue its operations. When Jian agrees to take over the store, brother opens the doors of the chamber where she's trapped. The protagonist quickly points a gun at him, demanding that he release Jongmin. However, brother denies the request, stating that Jin-man died because of Jongmin and that he has a video to prove it. Before clicking on the video, Jian sees through the camera footage that Min-hai is injured and orders brother to help her. When the friends are left alone, Jongmin hugs Jian in gratitude for trusting him, but soon claims that this was a big mistake. He reveals that he was one of the boys who locked her in the school. He then injects a paralyzing agent into Jian. Jian wakes up tied to a chair while the boy, who is supposed to be her friend, talks on the phone with his mysterious boss. Jongmin tells the person on the other end of the line that in less than 3 days, the Mirth-Help store will be his. His superior orders him to kill Jian, but before pulling the trigger, Jongmin believes she at least deserves an explanation. It all started a few years ago when Jongmin discovered the existence of Mirth-Help using his excellent hacking skills. At the time, he told his roommate that it was some kind of scam. When he returned to his apartment, Jongmin was ambushed by twin mercenaries and their leader, Yonghan. After torturing him, the criminals forced Jongmin and his friend to hack into Mirth-Help. Jongmin was about to be shot in the head when he managed to obtain the armory's IP address. However, his friend ended up being killed. With unexpected coldness, Jongmin asked if the mercenaries were going to dispose of the body, showing that he had what it took to join the Babylon assassin organization. From that day on, Jongmin made his way into Jin-man's wholesaling business, acting as a spy for Yonghan. Since the boy was a friend of his niece, Jin-man didn't suspect him and even asked Jongmin to fix his computer. This gave Jongmin access to Jin-man's personal files. However, we also learn at this point that Jongmin wasn't as good a spy as he thought, because brother had been watching him the whole time. Jongmin continues explaining that he was able to monitor the activities of Mirth-Help through a virus he installed on Jin-man's computer. One day, he received an anonymous message congratulating him, and soon after, one of the twins broke into his apartment. The man threatened to kill him because he was no longer useful to Babylon. However, Jongmin had prepared for this with a special program only he could use. If they killed him, the mercenaries would lose access to Mirth-Help. Additionally, he claimed to have created a plan to take down Jin-man. This brings us back to the present, where Jongmin himself shows Jian the video that proves his guilt. In the video, Jongmin is seen hanging from the ceiling by a rope. Jin-man had tied him up, suspecting his involvement in his niece's kidnapping after receiving a voice message from her, in which she sounded very frightened. In the video, Jongmin assures Jin-man that Babylon will release Jian on one condition: Jin-man's death. After freeing the hacker and making him promise to keep his word, Jin-man locks himself in the bathroom and commits suicide. He died without knowing that, in reality, Jian hadn't been kidnapped. The recording that had alarmed him was manipulated by Jongmin. Jian starts to cry, sad and frustrated by the whole story, but seconds later, she begins to laugh at the hacker, pointing out that he is just a pawn for Babylon. Completely disposable. Furious, Jongmin uses a gun to threaten her, which was exactly what she wanted. Jian immediately kicks the boy and frees herself from her restraints using a Muay Thai technique. She escapes, but Jong-min chases her down the corridors. With the guns locked, she has to use other objects to defend herself. She remembers her uncle's lessons and sets a trap in one of the corridors. She manages to catch Jong-min and hits him furiously in Jin-man's name. Outside, Song-jo is reinforced by Kuma, an elite Babylon mercenary, and a new attack android. Faced with the new offensive, Min-hai and brother activate the house's defenses and lock themselves in the hallway. The enemy robot makes a hole in the wall and releases poisonous gas into the depot, but Min-hai and brother are equipped with masks. Brother removes the wall, and Min-hai attacks the mercenaries, starting an intense shootout in which she eliminates all of them except Kuma. When he's about to shoot Min-hai, Jin appears, throwing grenades at him. He survives and shoots Min-hai several times. Jin tries to fight him, but she is overpowered by the mercenary. Before he can kill her, someone stabs Kuma in the back. It's Pazin, her uncle's friend. Pazin helps Jin up and warns her that Bale is on his way. We go back in time to learn about Jin-man's time as a mercenary for Babylon. The organization recruited ex-soldiers forgotten by the nation. On that mission, they were rescuing the son of an important figure who had become a target for an insurgent group. While Jin-man, Pazin, and Jun-chio protected the boy, Bale eliminated the enemies. But instead of taking them out quickly, he made the men suffer first. When the mission ended, Bale disappeared, and Song-jo sent a rookie to find him. The trail of corpses led straight to Bale, who was coldly executing civilians in the area. Bale and Song-jo blamed the rookie for the crime and blew his head off to cover their actions. Jin-man was suspicious of the story, but he had no choice but to accept it. Suddenly, the group was confronted by an armed boy, whom Bale didn't hesitate to gun down because, according to him, they couldn't leave witnesses. For this murder, Bale was brought to trial, and Jin-man was called as a witness. He had conducted his own investigation into the incident, discovering that the boy's gun wasn't loaded and that the rookie was killed by a Babylon bullet. Even so, Jin-man refused to testify against Bale at the trial after Yong-han reminded him how valuable someone as brutal as Bale was to their organization. Jin-man accepted this on the condition that he and Bale would never work on the same mission again. However, Yong-han broke that promise shortly after, with the excuse that he needed his two best men for a task. The new mission was to capture China's biggest drug trafficker, and failure was not an option, as Babylon was facing a serious economic crisis. During the mission preparations, Jin-man emphasized to Bale the need to capture the target alive. However, once they entered the trafficker's fortress, Bale decided to split up his squad. They found some of the trafficker's men, and after immobilizing them, Bale handed one of them a knife. That way, he could justify killing the enemy as self-defense. Elsewhere in the fortress, Jin-man and Pazin capture the drug dealer in his quarters and find a pair of women's shoes. Meanwhile, Bale and the twins realize that during the massacre, they also killed a woman who was hiding. Shortly after, they find a room full of frightened women. They beg for help, but Bale responds by throwing a grenade at them. Upon hearing the explosion and seeing the bodies, Jin-man and his allies confront Bale's squad, who challenges Jin-man to shoot him. Despite wanting to, Jin-man lowers his gun and promises to report him to their superiors. As the mercenaries plant bombs in the fortress, Jin-man finds a prostitute hiding in the drug lord's closet. It was Min-hai. The mercenaries, already outside the building, activate the bomb's timer. At the same time, Jin-man helps Min-hai escape. The two encounter Bale on their way out, forcing Jin-man to face him once and for all. After an intense knife fight, Jin-man is at the mercy of the assassin, but Min-hai shoots Bale in the eye. Jin-man grabs a gun to finish off the enemy, and Bale threatens him. The assassin says that if Jin-man lets him live, Bale will kill everyone Jin-man loves before finally killing him. Jin-man tries to shoot Bale, but his revolver is out of bullets. With the bombs about to explode, he is forced to flee with Min-hai. After these events, Gene Man made up a story about Bale's death and decided to leave Babylon. Dissatisfied with Gene Man's version of events, Yong-han orders that Gene Man be discreetly monitored. After 8 years of absence, Gene Man finally returns to his family and reconnects with the young Jian. On the other hand, one of Song-jo's shooting sessions is interrupted by Bale, now with his face scarred. Min-hai was sent by Gene Man to stay with his friend Honda. During her stay, Min-hai begins to take an interest in weapons. When Gene Man visits Honda's house, Min-hai hugs him emotionally and thanks him once again for saving her life. Honda then suggests that they work together in an online store, something he already has experienced with thanks to his younger brother, a computer genius who never leaves his room out of fear of light. Next, Gene Man's mother, who is sick in the hospital, receives a visit from Bale. Together with Song-jo and his former Babylon allies, Bale devised a plan to eliminate Gene Man as revenge for leaving him to die. The first step is to kill Gene Man's mother and gather his family in one place. At the funeral, Gene Man comments that his mother's death was very sudden, but his brother blames the illness and believes it's too late for Gene Man to show concern. Seeing his niece bored, Gene Man decides to take Jian home, and as soon as they leave the parking lot, Bale and his men arrive. Song-jo introduces himself to Jin Cheon and his wife as a friend of Gene Man. He takes the couple to the roof, where Bale waits to kill them, and stage the crime as a crime of passion. A few minutes before his brother and sister-in-law's deaths, Gene Man receives a call from Jun Cheo, who refused to take part in the assassination, warning him of Bale's plan. Thus, Gene Man calls Honda and asks him to protect his niece and heads back to the funeral. On the way, he is intercepted by a squad of mercenaries sent by Jun Cheo, whose family was threatened by Bale, to force his cooperation. As the bulletproof coating of his car is about to give in, Gene Man surprises the mercenaries with a machine gun and then defeats the traitor Jun Cheo in hand-to-hand combat. After the fight, Gene Man seeks Pazin to treat his wounds. At the same time, some mercenaries break into Honda's house looking for Min-hai, a witness who could incriminate them. She greets the mercenaries with gunfire. When Gene Man recovers, Pazin hands him a gun and asks him to leave, as he does not want to get involved in his revenge. Yong-han orders Bale to stop, but ensures that Babylon will take care of the rest. This leads the organization to pursue Young-ji and in the hospital. After rescuing his niece, Gene Man encounters Bale in the hallway, but uses the crowd of civilians to disappear with the girl. Yong-han receives an unexpected visitor, Gene Man, at his home. Gene Man says that he has lost many loved ones and doesn't want to lose anyone else. He vows that he won't seek revenge if they leave him in peace. To protect what remains of his family, Gene Man starts to develop the Mirth Help store with the help of Pazin, Min-hai, and brother, Honda's deceased brother. While brother organizes the arsenal, Pazin teaches Muay Thai to Min-hai. Thus, Gene Man creates a protective shield around Ji and using the green code. However, despite the promise of not seeking revenge driving Babylon away, Bale does not give up. Therefore, Gene Man begins teaching his niece how to protect herself. In the present, Pazin tries to remove the bullets from Min-hai's body. Not far away, in the secret tunnel leading to the store, brother finds a wire attached to the wall that smells of gunpowder. Meanwhile, Jong-min, still hanging upside down, manages to free himself when he sees there's no more immediate danger. He then heads to the computer with the intention of demonstrating to both Jian and the mercenaries the damage he can cause. Brother warns his companions that they cannot return to the store due to the initialization protocol. Throughout the 14 years of Mirth Help's existence, there has always been a manager, whether Gene Man, brother, or recently Jian. Since none of them are present now, the 24-hour initialization protocol was automatically activated. While trying to halt the process, brother discovers that Jong-min has accessed the store server. The allies discuss their next steps when Song-jo's android rises and attacks them with a sonic explosion. Pazin orders Jian to hide in the bathroom with brother. When Min-hai tries to destroy the android with blows, Song-jo and the twins breach the house's defenses and resume their attack. Seeing Honda's killer, Jian leaves brother safely in the bathroom and heads to her room while Min-hai tries to stop the trio. The twins shoot at her, but a vengeful Pazin challenges the two to a hand-to-hand combat match. In the room, Jian tries to surprise Song-jo but is easily overpowered. Suddenly, brother appears and throws himself at the enemy. He ends up dying, but his gesture gives Jian an opportunity to escape. At this moment, one of the twins approaches Jian, but Min-hai, with her last breaths, manages to stop him. Shaken by his brother's death, the surviving twin begins to pursue Pazin. In the warehouse, Jian discovers that the elevator has been disabled and that Song-jo is after her. She becomes nervous but recalls her uncle's words once again. Calmly, she picks up a gun from the floor and surprises Song-jo from behind, asking if he killed her parents. Without answering the question, the mercenary starts taunting the young girl. Then, an unknown sound distracts Jian, and her enemy seizes the opportunity to escape. The source of the noise is Jong-min, who managed to climb to the warehouse through the elevator hatch and is ready to kill anyone in his way. However, in his rage, he ends up using up all his bullets without hitting anyone. Song-jo emerges from his hiding spot and delivers an axe blow to the boy's head. At the same time, Jian heads to the arsenal and tries to open the weapon cage, without much success. Following the trail, Song-jo arrives at the store, initiating an unrelenting chase. The mercenary continues taunting Jian and mentions that he regrets what he did to her parents. He also reveals Jean Man's past as a member of Babylon and, while giving his speech, plants bombs throughout the corridors. Jian is caught by one of the bombs, but fortunately, the explosion releases a gun that she can use to even the odds. At this point, the twin loses track of Pazin but continues to search for him. Enraged, he kicks a door, triggering a new explosion and killing the man. The noise wakes brother, who is saved by his bulletproof vest. Meanwhile, Pazin realizes that Min-hai is still breathing. At Mirth Help, Jian attacks Song-jo with a forklift. The mercenary manages to dodge, but his movement activates a bomb that throws him under barrels of gasoline opened by Jian. Although Jian's plan has hit Song-jo, she is trembling as she holds a gun. The man asks if she has ever shot anyone before. She says no, and then she fires at the trail of gasoline, igniting Song-jo. Unfortunately, the flames trigger the sprinklers, preventing the man from being severely injured or killed. With this turn of events, Jian is forced to pull the trigger to eliminate the threat once and for all. Soon after, brother descends to the store and deactivates the initialization protocol. There, he discovers that Babylon has placed a bounty on their heads, attracting more mercenaries to the location. In light of this situation, Jian sends brother to confront the mercenaries armed with a bomb vest so that they don't shoot. She uses the loudspeakers to introduce herself as the new owner of Mirth Help and offers a gift to her former clients, Song-jo's severed head. She offers a truce in exchange for maintaining customer codes and discounts at the store. Otherwise, if they continue to try to take Mirth Help, everyone will die. The mercenaries accept the deal and retreat. With the battle over, Jian walks through the wreckage of her uncle's destroyed house, not finding Pazin or Min-hai. Instead, she sees a bus approaching the house and thinks that more enemies are arriving. However, it turns out to be an acquaintance from Jean Man's funeral, bringing the yellow code, which means cleanup service. At dawn, as the cleanup agents finish their work, another car approaches the property, and Jean Man emerges from it.